What's up, guys? You got the new collaboration monsters coming, and it's really exciting because we were really thinking that you guys in Global weren't going to be able to get these new collaboration monsters. And to be fair, one of them at least is extremely good in a lot of different situations. So it's really cool that Come To Us is bringing back these collaboration monsters. I don't know if they're going to be doing the same thing with the One Punch Man. I don't think so, just because of how strict the IP is. But at least with the tutorial tower collaboration, you guys seem to be getting the original monsters again. So that is pretty cool. I'm going to run through the original monsters that you guys are going to be getting, and then I'm going to be letting you know what my thoughts are and which ones that you should go for on their particular banners. All right, let's start out. There are 3 5-star monsters and a 4-star monster that you will have access to. The 4-star monster should be completely for free, and you will get that one. The rest of these monsters, the 5 stars, you've got Keanu Kim, you've got Narin Ha, and you also have Miriam. All 3 of these monsters are pretty decent. One of them definitely stands out above the rest of them. And then the last monster you'll be able to get is a 4-star monster, AV. AV is actually quite nice in a lot of boss battles, as well as in Galagos, personally. I like to bring AV into Galagos. She's got the attack down, the crit rate down, defense up, and HP recovery. All things that are really nice for large groups and survivability. And we'll talk more about them here in a second. What is nice about these monsters and this event is that this is not a special scroll event. You will be able to summon these monsters with the regular mystical scrolls that you have saved up. All right, let's get started out with the main character of the show. It's actually a webtoon. Something tutorial tower. Forgive me, I'll put it up on the screen. Keanu Kim is the main character here in his tracksuit and his sandals. Well, let's go ahead and take a look. Keanu Kim is a warrior, fire warrior type, but he is extremely high damage. That is sort of his thing. He puts out a ton of damage. First basic attack here is just 200% attack as damage. Second one is more attack and its defense penetration. So that means it's going to go through some of those tank monsters and do a lot more damage to those tankier bruiser monsters. More damage here, as well as if the target is a monster, let's say Galagos, you will get an attack up for 16 seconds. So not incredibly bad. Leaps to the enemy target and strikes down to deal damage that penetrates defense and deals bonus damage to nearby enemies. So that bonus damage right here, the 290, that's to nearby enemies. So, you know, a little AoE effect. You've got the next skill here. This is skill 2. Attacks enemies within the area and removes 2 beneficial effects on them. Strip is a really important thing. So having strip on this monster's kit is really beneficial. It deals bonus damage based off the number of beneficial effects removed from each target and grants invincibility to himself. So this is one of those situations where he can strip a bunch of things, put some protection up on himself, and then all of a sudden do a ton of big damage. And then lastly, we've got a passive here. If beneficial effect is stolen or removed, level 3 attack up for 10 seconds. If beneficial effect is stolen or removed, level 3 crit rate up. So basically, if he has attack up, let's say from a Bastet, if that gets stolen or removed, then he is going to apply to himself attack up or crit rate up. So kind of a lot of protection around this unit, allowing him to, you know, do more damage but keep himself alive. So he does really big damage, but I will say that we really never see this monster for a multitude of reasons. It's a very water heavy meta. I just don't think his kit plays out as well as it does on paper. It is a relatively high mana cost here. Mana cost 4, 26-second cooldown. Mana cost 3, 20-second cooldown. And then they got the passive here, which is on a 13-second cooldown. The book stats are really nice going into attack and crit damage. But overall, from my experience, I don't own this monster. I have never seen this monster in PvP. Not once. And you know how often I'm in doing PvP. At least at the higher levels, I've never seen Keanu Kim. Now, that doesn't mean that he doesn't necessarily have a place. And if you have the resources to pick him up, it might be a cool idea to get him in case he gets buffed one day. Or he fits into the meta at some point. But for now, he just isn't. And he's just not the guy. He's not that guy. All right. Let's go on to our kind of second up here. Let's go to the wind one, which is Miriam. Now, Miriam, I definitely do see in PvP quite a bit. Miriam actually did just get a little buff as well, and I think it helped her out quite a bit. This is a Wind Warrior monster, Miriam. Her first basic attack is simple, 200% attack is damage. Her next attack is based off of max HP, which is always kind of nice, but it is split between attack and max HP, unlike a unit like Rakan, who is fully max HP scaling, which is kind of nice for an HP monster. All right, this first skill, level 2, defense down. So it's a defense break, which is really, really nice. So let's read the description here. Rushes head on and throws a powerful punch to deal damage based on her max HP to enemies, AoE, within an area, and applies defense down to all of those monsters with a certain chance. Removes 2 beneficial effects on the target when she successfully applies defense down. So if you're running up against an Aerial and a Taeor, this is a massively good counter pick, because she's going to put that defense down, which is going to destroy Taeor's damage, right, and destroy their survivability, as well as do lots of damage based off max HP, as well as remove any buffs that they might have, which includes that defense up that they both put on each other, right? So Miriam is a great counter unit to that heavy defense water meta. All right, let's look at this second skill, 3-step assassination. Takes 3 steps forward with a burst of energy to deal damage based off of her max HP to nearby enemies. Again, it's an AoE monster, and applies defense up and damage dealt up to herself per hit. Again, this is attack and HP, defense up and damage dealt up. So pretty strong. This is where she gets interesting. Path of Emperor, which is her passive. If the target is a fire attribute, damage dealt up 30%. If the target is a water attribute, damage taken down 30%, and when the enemy is defeated, level 1 attack up. So essentially, she's always having some sort of benefit, even when she's going up against monsters that are not quite the same element, or not the most beneficial element. So when she goes up against fire, she's doing more damage. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that her crit rate goes up. We know that's always an issue with crit rate, going up against a different element, but she is getting more damage up. So it is kind of nice. She doesn't feel too weak up against a counter element like fire. So overall, I have seen several units or several players use this unit, Miriam, in PvP pretty successfully. One of our top Kinas, they finished, I believe, top 8 or top 7 last season, uses Miriam on a daily basis in PvP. So definitely a strong unit, and it's actually the unit that I picked up. Now, I'm going to say that I minorly regret it a little bit because I have not personally built my Miriam. There was just too many things that were a higher priority to build at the moment. So the monster that I kind of wish I had gone on, and this is going to be our third and last monster that we'll talk about, is Narin Ha. Narin Ha is the water version of Argon in a lot of ways. She is a massive damage dealer in raids, in guild bosses, and lots of other content, to be fair. So let's take a quick look at some of her skills here. 165% attack as damage on her skill 1, a little bit low. Okay, skill 1 attacks enemies within the area and applies block beneficial effects. And if you guys, my Cleef mains out there, know block beneficial effects is a killer for us. It also applies frostbite to a random enemy target within the area, respectively. Okay, block beneficial effects for 14 seconds. Well, let's go up to level 7, 20 seconds, and frostbite for 20 seconds, as well as doing big damage. So that block beneficial effects actually has been used in PvP quite a bit. Now, I'm not going to say that this is a staple unit in PvP. It's definitely a staple unit in PvE, which we'll talk about in a second. But I have been wrecked once or twice by a Narin Ha in PvE. Mostly a very high burst comp, starting out with this block beneficial effect, switching over to a defense breaker, and then just blowing my Cleef out of the water. So, has been used in burst comps, but I wouldn't say that it's a staple in the meta for PvP. Okay, this is the big skill that really kind of makes her important in PvE content. Okay, we've got level 7 here. Cooldown is 18 seconds and a mana cost 3, very similar to Argon in the fact that it's a 3 mana cost skill. Attacks enemy target 3 times with damage based off the number of harmful effects. If you remember Argon and Naomi, they do damage based off of the number of harmful effects, making them extremely good in raids and guild boss and things like that, where there's multiple summoners and multiple teams, and you get lots of debuffs on the boss. So per hit, each hit, right? Remember, there's 3 of them, is 330% attack and 40% based off the number of targets' harmful effects. If the target has block beneficial effects, right? So if you use your skill 1 and then skill 2, there's a level 1 defense down. So her rotation is typically hit him up with this skill 1 and then go ahead and hit him up with a bunch of these skill 2s here, allowing you to do a lot more damage with that defense down. Now, typically some member of your party is going to be bringing defense down, or maybe you're an Orbia and you have a wind staff and you can apply defense down that way, or you're a Cleef and you're using water staff, you can apply defense down that way. There's lots of ways to bring defense down, so I don't know if I would rely on this second part, but really it's the first part. It's the number of harmful effect damage. Much like an Argon or a Naomi, she is a staple in the PvE meta. Okay, if the target is a fire attribute, damage dealt up, making her extremely good against fire bosses, especially the fire world boss. If the target is a fire attribute, accuracy up 25% as well. So this is just a added benefit to placing her up against fire monsters or fire bosses specifically, but she still does incredible damage up against your normal raid bosses, Foggy Prison, White Castle, the Naraka boss. We bring Narin Ha all the time into the Twisted Marsh raid. We also bring her a lot into the new Tree of Heroes boss. All right, guys. The other thing I wanted to talk about is all the different uses of Narin Ha. Not only is she good in boss battles, but she's been extremely good in a lot of dungeon content as well. I'm going to show you some of the statistics for Narin Ha in a lot of these different dungeons. Now, I personally don't have Narin Ha, but I've seen lots of other people use her, and she's been a staple in a lot of these dungeons. So if you're looking at getting a new monster, if you already have an Argon, it's kind of one of those things that you can get by. I've gotten by without an Narin Ha just fine, right? And used Argon in almost every single raid dungeon. But Narin Ha definitely has some places that where she is significantly better. So in this case, you can see that this dungeon right here, the Special Expedition, the light one, you can bring in Narin Ha. You see Narin Ha has all the fastest records as well as the second most used monster. Fire Talates, we definitely use her in Fire Talates. She's extremely good in this boss. Shurekli, we see her occasionally in the fastest records, and we even see her here as number 5. Argon a little bit higher up here. Let's go over and look at some of the Path of Growth dungeons here. Level 2 hard, Spider Queen, definitely a viable option here. Argon's a little bit better because of the just the wind on water advantage. We've got Forgotten Earth Shrine. Obviously, Rigel, our boy, is going to be number 1. But as a secondary DPS, Narin Ha is a phenomenal choice for this dungeon. Let's go actually level 2 here. Rigel really is our boy here, but as you can see, Narin Ha is the second pick for this dungeon. Borbo here in the Lava Cave, you're definitely going to see Narin Ha a ton, especially in level 2. This boss is all about, he got block beneficial effects, so that's able to block the beneficial effects that he applies to himself, which is really, really good. So as you can see, Narin Ha used a ton in this raid. And then last we've got Temple of Darkness, number 1 monster used in Temple of Darkness. So again, these are situations where you could certainly get away with other monsters, and people do all the time. But if you're looking for a really incredibly solid PvE unit that is one of the number 1 picks in a lot of different content, then you're really going to want to look at Narin Ha. Here's a quick rundown of what the event is going to look like. The main portion of the event is going to be this first section, which is completing little challenges inside of the Trial of Ascension. Essentially, you'll have to bring in some lower level monsters, some very specific types of monsters or specific elements of monsters, and defeat certain floors while using those lower level monsters. So if you've been playing the game for a couple of weeks, you shouldn't have a problem with the event. If you are just starting out, you may want to push the Trial of Ascension as hard as you can in order to be able to accomplish all the challenges in this event and obtain all of the rewards that you can see are all the way up. So as you gain more points on the Trial of Ascension missions, you'll be able to go up the list here and obtain more and more of these rewards. Because you might be confused, the little purple lantern things are actually the 4 and 5-star Devilmons, much like the One Punch Man event where they gave us those training tickets. Essentially, they are Devilmons specifically for these collaboration monsters. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up my little overview of the 3 monsters. Again, if you are going to choose one monster to go on for this banner, I would highly suggest it be Narin Ha. Narin Ha is extremely good in a lot of different places all throughout the game, sort of a supplement to Aryan in a lot of different places, as well as best in slot monster for many different dungeons, as well as expedition dungeons. If you have any questions, let me know down in the Discord. Also, down in the comment section, let me know which one that you're going to decide to go ahead and get, or if you're going to skip this collaboration banner, let me know down in the comments. All right, guys, as always, I'm Topher Smurf telling you to keep on gaming.